And so what we have here is our previous estimate based upon the two estimates that we did. And that is the budget that you had recently seen, and ultimately what we had been advertising for the past few months since the estimates have come in. And the next two columns, column G and column H. Column G will be for the base scope, and column H is accepting both alternates. I understand there may be a scenario where we only take one. We would update the numbers accordingly after that. So what we have is the OPM fees. This would be reflective of the entire construction closeout and warranty phase, inclusive of a construction site manager who is on site, as well as the OAC meetings and the other project management that will be going into the project. We have not submitted a proposal for this. This would come after town meeting, but this is a staffing chart has been put together ultimately that we would submit for review by the town prior to sending in the proposal for a contract amendment. Same goes for LPA and their A&E services. We're contracted with them through bidding. We will also need a proposal for the construction administration throughout for construction and closeout and warranty for that work as well. This number was provided to me early on. At this point, I have talked with LPA and they are confirming this number now, but we're pretty comfortable with this. There are some specialty services that we have included in this document. We have some special services or a traffic study, FF&E procurement. These are all things that we want to make sure we have a placeholder for. These numbers are already, I'm sorry, I want to take a quick step back that this entire total project budget is made up of previous appropriations as well, so that we can show exactly what has been asked for already and then what the total global project cost is. And then we do the math at the bottom to show what the ask would be at this town meeting. We also have hazardous materials consultant and monitoring. We have a placeholder for that. That would be for any abatement for any asbestos or any air quality monitoring that would need to happen throughout construction. We then have some administration fees. And I know, Ed, if you want me to rip through this and then go back to the numbers that we need to discuss in regards to temp and moving.
Sure.
But these are things that ultimately we're going to need during construction that would be inclusive of commissioning for the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. We will need, we want to hold some money for building envelope commissioning. This could be to the tune of having some thermal imaging done, inspections of the roof once the roof's installed, and also any type of imaging from the exterior of the building to make sure that insulation is complete and that we don't have any air gaps in the envelope. Utility company fees. I believe everybody has seen kind of the documents that have gone back and forth about an easement from National Grid. Ultimately, the project will need to spend money for the engineering as well as the equipment for the transformer that will be on site. We have a placeholder for that amount as well. We then have a construction testing line item for $50,000. What we would do with an approval at town meeting is we would be sending out an RFP to construction testing firms. And what they do is they put a proposal together dictated to by our structural engineer, such that they would be performing testing on a periodic basis, whether it's for any structural integrity testing, any concrete testing that would need to be done. Usually for a new build, we would have a much higher line item for this. But with it being a renovation, we have it at $50,000. And so this would be one of our first orders of business with an approved project. As we just discussed, our base construction, we have the Seaver number here for the bid results is 8.177812 with the two alternates added as well. So that would just be the hard construction costs that we have here. FF&E are things that we also need to budget for. These are numbers that were put together from LPA months ago in regards to the furnishings, the additional shelving, as well as the technology. We have so during construction, we would be going back out to them, refreshing that number and making sure that our budget is correct on this. The only thing that I have a question regarding this, and Kate, not to put you on the spot, is one, I'm a little confused on whether or not we should be accounting for any work with CW Mars with the service coming back into the new building. Whether there's any type of, and I know Christina just had some emails with Ann on whether or not, but I don't know if this is something we should be budgeting for, or I should put a placeholder in here in order to make sure that we're covered.
Yeah, Brian, I'm with you. I'm not quite sure. So I'd be interested to hear kind of Ann's response to that. I think it's probably safer to assume some cushion, but I don't think it would be significant.
Okay. Okay. So Ed, just before I would PDF and send this to you, there may need to put something in the line item where it comes from a, you know, a technology or fiber optics from the CW Mars people that may need to be accounted for in the FF&E package.
So I know getting fiber to the temporary library, they expect that'll be less than 10,000. I can't imagine it would be more than that for here unless we're going to get a fancier fiber.
Correct.
Okay, so you're right. That's not going to be a large item.
Correct. Lastly, we have our contingencies. These are taken from a percentage based on the construction estimate that we have, and then also based upon the hard bid that we got from Seaver. We are holding currently right now, excuse me, I'm sorry. We are holding about 11.5% for a construction contingency on here. It is my opinion, in leading up with our estimates, we were holding a 10% contingency. I think even with our favorable bids that we have, shouldn't be a reason for us to cut the contingency that we have. Specifically on a renovation project such as this, there still could be a lot of unknowns that are found, old skeletons in the closet that we're going to need to be identified and taken care of. And so I felt it appropriate to maintain the construction contingency that we have, which yields a higher percentage, but keeps the same amount for construction. The same goes for the owner's project contingency, and that ultimately is a multiplier of a contingency on top of the soft costs. That would be in the event that if there's a request from the owner for any additional architectural services, if there's any overruns from a technology standpoint, if there's any asks from the owner from a furniture standpoint, things if we needed to dip into something, we have a 5% contingency based on the soft costs that we would be holding as well. So we have the project total here at the bottom. These are the numbers that we've been advertising in orange previously. And leading up to here, we have the recognized savings from bid day. And then we deduct the appropriations that were asked at the two previous town meetings, leading to where we are right now for our project total town meeting ask on March 22nd as the two numbers here in green, or somewhere in the middle if one alternate is the one that's to be chosen.
Did we chose alternate 2 over alternate 1, or is you can't do 2 unless you do 1 alternate?
Correct.
1?
Correct.
Okay.
So also the contingencies, if unspent, never get borrowed. So
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Obviously, you spend some contingency, but we may not need all.
Any money that's not spent, Walter, and I think we'll get in a good groove through construction when we present our vendor invoice packets, which will show the uncommitted money at that point. And as we get closer to the end, you'll have an understanding of what any what leftover funds would be available to either turn back over to the town, or if there were any things that was omitted, that was, you know, cut out of the project earlier, that now could be put in, that would be the time to talk about it. But we would track those remaining funds and ultimately forecast what the savings would be at the end of the day. But yes, all contingencies are not the contractor's money. That's the town's money.
So in kind of a summary, I have from my notes from the website, you know, we had estimated the total project cost to be about 15.8 million. 1.8 had already been spent. You know, 360,000 in 2023 and 1.5 million in 2024. So we're saying that the total ask at town meeting was projected to be about 14 million, and that's, I assume, an orange.
That's
So
correct.
if we don't have any alternatives, it will be then 12.5. If we do, even the two alternates together would be 12.888. That is way still under what we had estimated. So that's good. So, okay,
Correct.
I just want to know what has been publicized to the public, what to expect, and they're expecting perhaps a 14 million ask. So, okay.
That is correct, Bob. We've been mentioning numbers at every public opportunity, and the number has
Yep.
been 14 million, a 14 million ask and a 15 point whatever
8.
total. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Okay, so this is good. Yep.
So I do think, Ed, and if we'd like to discuss this now regarding the temporary facilities number that we are still
Yeah.
holding there for $675,000.
Yeah,
I think that can be reduced. I do not want to cut us too close to the bone. You know, we ultimately the message I believe should be that the town was able to get very favorable bids as well as utilize resources from the town already to help with the number that had been advertised previously. But with that being said, you know, I'd hate to cut the temporary costs too drastically in order to cut the number down even further, and have something come up on a temporary basis that we may need.
let's go up
But-
and take a look at that number, Brian.
Yeah,
Yes.
because it still seems huge to me.
Yep.
Brian, did you have a number in mind, or should I pull the number out of my mind?
So my first thought, and it is a question that I had for the committee and for Kate, is the project going to be responsible for utility costs here? Understanding there may not be rent now, but electric and fiber and water and
Those
other
come out of
utilities.
the department budget, not
Okay,
Yeah,
construction.
that would be the library's operating budget, not the capital. And the fact that we're taking them in a different building, I think, is immaterial.
okay.
Or it goes directly to the town because it's
Yeah.
a town building.
Okay, that would be even easier.
So what I can say is here in this building, our operating budget pays for this building's heat, not electric, but all of the things that go into that. But in the community center, the community center costs, it looks like those things come out of Public Works and not rec. So I'm not sure if us operating in that building means we then take on those costs, or if those would still come out of Public
It's-
Works, or if we would need to
but-
build them out.
No, but it shouldn't go into a project cost because you still budgeted for your operating costs for next year, as far as I know. So
Yeah.
now granted, there's some amount of stuff needed to be done in the constructed building too, right? Although maybe you drain all the water, I don't know. So but I don't think that this shouldn't go under this line. I don't think.
Okay.
Operating costs should not go into, I think, a capital article like that.
And it will be operating once we move in there. That's just
Yeah.
ongoing library operations.
Okay, so ultimately, what we need to account for temporary operations is going to be the consultant work and LPA work that's happening right now in identifying what's going to take in order to gain occupancy into this building. We had a pretty strict list of documents that are needed and assessments that are needed from the building and fire departments of the town. And LPA has engaged with a consultant, and we will present that proposal to the committee today. It is my recommendation that we proceed with this work to get this underway, that can be funded out of our previous appropriations contingency that we still have. That will allow us to identify any work that needs to be done. And then once that work is identified, I'm under the assumption that the project would need to pay for this work. We do have some contacts from Johnson Controls, who owns the maintenance contract for fire alarm throughout the municipal buildings. I'll be reaching out to them. I've also spoken with Andy Bowling, who is in Jim Stewart's absence, kind of helping with facilities. He had mentioned that he's already engaged with Johnson Controls to do some work at this building. So we are currently making sure that we're not overlapping any work that's being done while still getting the reports and assessments done that the building and fire are requiring for us to gain occupancy in the building. The other things that we will need to account for are, once we do gain occupancy, if there's anything that Kate and staff need in order on a temporary basis. We understand we're moving all of our furniture in stacks and shelving from one location to the other, but there still may be a need for office workstations, cubicle partitions, any type of temporary shelving, from, let's say, built-in shelving at the existing library that can't be moved, and we want to put that collection in a certain area at the temp location. I think that there needs to be some sort of a hold to make sure that we would manage, and the building committee would approve, in the event that happens throughout the year. The other things for temp operations, in addition to the fire alarm, the sprinkler system, and the life safety systems in the building, are any other upgrades or cosmetic changes that need to happen. I understand that the bathrooms need a little bit of work. We got some decent results saying they weren't as bad as we thought. There is some lighting concerns that maybe some lighting work would need to be worked on. I want to make sure that we hold any money there, and if there's any facilities contracts that we can utilize to have that looked at as well. All of this work would hopefully be happening the day right after town meeting, or the following Monday. We would start engaging on this work. So those are the things that I'm identifying as what we need for temp operations. Do I think it's $675,000? Absolutely not. So go ahead, Ed, if you'd like to discuss what number you'd like to hold.
Well, I came up with a number totally out of my head. Well, it's not totally. I know Mark Stockman, the town's IT director, has estimated that the IT changes will be less than 10,000. That leaves out the fire changes, which could be more. But I made up a number of 250,000 just to say, just hopefully that would be enough. And I'd love it for all the experts to tell me either, no, we need more, or yes, that's good. As Brian said, we want to leave enough cushion so that I'd rather ask for too much now and not use it than not ask for enough and have to go back later.
I agree with you, Ed. My first initial thought before we had spoke today was to cut the number in half, which is around 330 is what I had there originally. So I don't think we're that far off. I just don't want to be put in a position where if things do snowball or we have scope creep at the temporary library, that we're going to have to take from a different contingency, whether it's our soft cost contingency or construction contingency, to cover some of the temporary costs. And so I think we're close, and I don't think you're wrong in the number that you gave.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important too to keep ourselves in the mindset of it's a temporary thing and that we might live with some things. You're quite a ways apart there in real dollars, though. But
this is true. Lee and Sean, I see. Lee, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I apologize for being a little late here. I'm just trying to figure out this temporary operations amount as we're discussing it now. Kate, what does the library for an equal period of time, just staying where we are, what would the operations and facilities budget be? And shouldn't this be something that's sort of a delta between what it would have cost if we stayed there and moving it over here? Because it isn't really a cost of
Let me
creating the
jump in
new
for a second.
space.
The 675 here,
Yeah,
that was originally the cost of renting space and then making whatever modifications were needed to get it ready to use. And it
Okay.
didn't include the ongoing operation costs. I think
okay,
that's,
good.
so we're looking now at what will it take to make this space ready for the library?
Okay,
Um,
thank you. That answered my question.
Sean, go ahead. You're on mute.
Muted.
Yes, thank you. So the other thing is we can come up with a quote here today, and then we can always lower it slightly on town meeting floor.
Okay.
Which is better than raising it slightly on town meeting floor.
Mhm.
So if over the course of the next couple weeks, we learn more or get more specific pricing about some of these things, then we could always come in a little bit lower than that. So I think I'd probably rather stay at Brian's number. And then if we get firmer figures, reduce that when we get to town meeting. So,
Thank you, Sean. I
thoughts
think
on
the
that?
same goes for our moving budget right now. The RFP is out with 3 different companies, and ultimately we have proposals due next week. And I hope that 250,000 there starts to take a little bit more focus from the numbers that we have. That number is based off of previous moves that we've had with libraries. And like you said, I would hope and anticipate that we'd be able to drop that as we got to town meeting itself.
I'm good with Sean's logic, and we can take it down by 50% to 330 something, whatever that is.
Okay.
Now, and if we manage to take a few more tens of thousands off of that in real life, so much the better.
Thank you.
Any questions or objections to that?
I mean, I just have a little bit of concern, but I like the idea of lowering it before town meeting if we can, because that was supposed to include rent,
Right.
and I want to be real careful about money we're investing in a temporary facility, and I think, but I'm okay with the approach to keep looking at it, and just like last time, you guys lowered the number in the motion from the warrant. That's perfectly a nice thing to do.
Sean, your hand is up.
Yeah, so I would just also add to this, though, that whatever we're spending, or the majority of what we're spending, my understanding on the community center in terms of fire and things of this nature are going to be permanent improvements. And
That is
so
correct.
this money will be actually representing value in the community center versus if it had been rent.
It's a great point, Sean. I think that one thing we needed that I didn't say, but we would need to account for would be worst case scenario that an entire new fire alarm panel would need to be installed for this facility. And we would coordinate with the community and senior center project to make sure that they're aware of what's being put in at that point. So if the upfront cost needs to come from us in order to get the temporary occupancy, that it's something that the town wouldn't be paying double dipping for both projects.
I'm going to toss in my 2 cents there. I've got 2 principles for deciding what to do here. One is to do as little as possible while still having a temporary library operate. And the other is for things we do need to do, like possibly the fire alarm panel, make sure we do something that will be of value to whoever uses the building next, senior center, veterans, rec department, all of the above. So we'll be coordinating with them and their architectural team to accomplish that. I see 2 more hands up. Pete.
I'm following up on kind of the spirit of Lee's questions. Is that line item just maybe mislabeled a little bit. It's really the temporary facilities. Or are there actually temporary operational costs monthly or whatever accruing in that line item? Is it just temporary facilities? And,
Yeah.
and it, would it be wise to just relabel it a bit?
Yes, I'll relabel that to just temp facilities.
Good, thank you. Bill?
Yeah, that was one of mine the same way. I support the cutting it in half at this point. I think Brian knows more of what the details are there. And regarding, like we just said about the temporary facilities, I would recommend that we have a scope document, doesn't have to go up, but be ready to say what these different sections include, because sometimes we, at the town meeting, somebody will say, you didn't need this, you didn't need that, or the other thing. Just by telling them what's in each section, not that we have to get, not that we should give them the amount of money, but the section description, I think, helps the public understand. We, the committee, have been through this. We can see it, yet they don't see what's being included. And we've had some come to us over the last couple of years and say, why do you have to do this? Why do you have to do that? I think we spell out to them, this is what's included, this is what's required through state bidding and et cetera. So think about it. Maybe Brian can provide some kind of a mini document, if you will, that has even the subtitles, a grouping of subtitles. I think it'd be helpful. Thank you.
And Bill, you're meaning kind of a more condensed version of this, but it's broken out by subtitles that kind of gives a little more roundabout feel of what, you know, where we're coming from with certain soft costs.
Yeah, so just to educate the public, too many of them go back to their house construction. Some of them are in between where we are. I think that be ready, and we don't have to unless it's asked for. But if we have a document that shows that, it's one up for us. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, I decided my seat was too uncomfortable. Kate, go ahead.
I just had a clarifying question about that, that line, the operations and facilities. So, our line items in our budget that pay for our facilities costs, our maintenance lines, our HVAC lines, they, in the latest version of the budget, they are actually getting lowered because we're moving into temporary space. And I'm not sure, had we gone into the rental space, would those costs have been included in the rent and covered by that line? I just want to make sure that I'm not having to go back to AFC or somebody and say, hey, I'm out of money because I have to pay for the AC in both places this summer, because it's not a large budget in my operating budget. So I'm just asking the question, throwing it out there so that I can make sure and plan accordingly.
We can look at the proposal for the rental and find out whether it included utilities. I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head.
I believe it did, Ed.
Okay. So as far as this goes, we're agreed to reduce that 675 number that's highlighted to by 50% to 330 something.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we need to take a vote on this yet. At some point, we're gonna want to take on the vote on the total project budget, probably before we present it to town meeting. Any other questions on what we're looking at here? Brian, let's talk about the alternates while you have your spreadsheet up. We do need to vote on those.
All set? So we have, like we said, the two alternates, the first being the book drop. This was the vote from the committee on and maybe someone from LPA can just give a quick description again as a reminder what the option was for this book drop. I don't want to misspeak, but I know that this has the little reorientation of the retaining wall as well as some construction on the facade in order to have the book drop as a little inlet at that entrance of the building.
That's right, Brian. There was a little bit of demolition of the existing plaza and the existing retaining wall. There was some excavation, repair of the parts of the existing building that were subgrade there. And then construction of a new retaining wall and concrete paving. There was some work with to remove the glass in the window there and install a new book drop with a cart that would be on casters that would hold a large number of books. And then there was some outside landscaping, and I believe we were replacing the bicycle racks there.
Yes.
Christina, chime in if I've missed anything.
The only thing I'd add to that is that we are adding an interior partition and door to separate the porch from the book drop area as well.
And just to remind the committee as well, that was the option that was voted on and an amendment to LPA in order to design this with their consultants. So ultimately, if the direction was to ever not take this due to the price and try something new, we would be subject to, more design fees and then a change order to the contractor at this point. So this is the price for the option that was chosen.
Brian, is this going to be affected at all by National Grid's transformer that's going in? It's unclear from the drawings that we saw where exactly that's located.
Great question. And Mike, I think you have the location of that on the site.
We do. So that rectangle or squarish form with a T in the middle of it, that is the transformer. Exactly, Christina, thank you. And then you can just see the outline of the existing retaining wall adjacent, just off the side of that transformer area. So those are the conditions that are constraining our book drop construction area. So we're outside of it. The contractor should properly coordinate the timing of the construction of the transformer and the pads so that the work doesn't conflict with the timing of the book drop scope.
Lee, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Ed. I'm not sure if we ever discussed this in our meeting before, but at some point, some of us were wondering if we needed more handicap parking, especially our relationship with the library. That spot where you're saying we'll make new bicycle racks there, that we thought there was enough room between the library going out toward Main Street for maybe 2 handicap parking spaces. Does anybody recall thinking about that? That might be important.
I thought that because we had 2 spaces over on the police or the Forbes building side, that would be adequate.
Okay, well, if everybody's happy with that, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I asked the question.
Okay, and if there's no other questions for alternate number 2, which we were budgeting $90,000 for, was the aluminum storefront the storm windows for the 1980s portion of the building. That price did come in at $153,447. I do believe there had been some conversation at previous building committee meetings from the engineering consultants about the upfront cost of this and the ultimate life cycle payback from an envelope perspective on whether or not this would be worth it. So I just wanted to give that just to the committee based on that. And I would let LPA speak to that, what their opinion is of it before we take a vote on it.
I'm gonna jump in first. I see Bill's hand is up.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah. No, I think regarding Lee's question and the comments following, I think we should proceed with the town where we've asked for that area that was once for the library, which is now open to anything and everything. I think that would cover us. At least it shows the public that we're trying to provide more parking space and adequate handicap right there where it's always been.
Pete,
Yeah, I have comments on both alternates. So I'll start with alternate 2. It just doesn't make any sense to spend 153,000, so I'm recommending a no vote on that. On the first one, in the drawing, the transformer seemed very close to the entranceway, and I was trying to understand the aesthetics of that. Is it contained in any way, or what's it going to look like?
Mike, do you have that?
Sorry. No, I don't have a visual of it, but basically it is a metal green box that will sit on a concrete pad that the pad itself is slightly elevated above grade, and then the transformer itself is probably 4.5 to 5 feet tall. So it's it's by no means a memorial out there, but it's a as plain as it can be utility box.
Maybe we
Uh,
could get the woman who's painting those boxes around town. Maybe we could get her to paint that one.
Bill, your hand is up.
Yeah, I support Lee's just comment. The second thing, Mike, does it have to have a chain link fence around it, or it's
It does
secure the
not.
way okay, good.
It does not. We do have bollards going in front of it, so there would be and they do need to be that safety yellow or a high contrast color bollard in front of them. And the one thing that we do need to keep in mind, although we could do some sort of fence around it if you want to beautify it, we do need to make sure that proper access is provided to National Grid for them to maintain it. So if a fence was to go around it, it would need to be far enough away to allow the utility company to work on it safely.
I would just add, Christine, if you could bring up that image again of the alternate, the line of the transformer is actually the inner line. The double outer line that you see is it's a fairly new requirement from National Grid. They require an oil retaining area around the transformer. If for whatever reason it ever leaks, it'll be contained and not flow into a catch basin and create an environmental issue. So that line is really just at grade level, and those double inner lines with the T in it is the transformer itself. So it's really maybe a little deceiving to look at the outer line there.
Just to follow up, I think we need good descriptions should we approve both 1 and 2 alternates. We need good descriptions of what they are. And let's be creative yet honest on the book drop. In the end, it was to make sure that we had enough space inside the building and not take away from it. And I think we need to describe that. So it being an alternate, somebody could look at it's an after the fact, and somewhat yes, but space wise no. So I think we got to be there. The second alternate, what was that one? It's not up on the screen.
No, the storm windows in the new building.
Yeah, I think I understand what Pete's saying, but I think before we kill it, we have to know an analysis of how much heat is it saving. Pete, you have a better handle on that, and between that and the architect, but I think we should understand that.
Al, you've got a comment.
I just want to let everybody know, we had to put a transformer over in the Parkman House right behind the Forbes building, and I'm sure this other transformer that's going to go in the library is probably pretty similar to that. So if somebody wants to look at it, you can take an eyeball of that and you'll see pretty much what is going to go in.
I have a question, and that is, would the transformer be there anyways, with or without alternate one being approved?
Yes.
Okay, so it's interesting because I know in our neighborhood, I think I can recall 3 transformers at ends of neighbors' driveways, and they put a couple of burning bushes around them, and even in the winter when there's no leaves, after a while walking by, you don't even notice it anymore. So, but I understand the need for like a yellow partition around it, but I think they're just part of the landscape nowadays.
Walter?
I guess I'd like to move that we approve the first one and not the second.
Why don't we, let's do a motion just for the first one and then take a separate motion for the
Okay.
second.
Okay,
So-
I move we approve the first
I second.
alternate.
I hear a lot of seconds. Okay, let's go through the list. Okay, let's see. Lynn,
Sukup, yes.
Kate,
Caraccio, yes.
Bob,
Petroselli, yes.
Lee,
Emery, yes.
Bill,
Lenine, yes.
Walter,
Leslie, yes.
Al,
Gordon, yes.
Mary,
Dawson, yes.
Sean.
Yes.
Have I missed anybody?
Pete
Okay,
Dunbeck, yes.
Oh, Pete, I'm sorry.
Uh,
And myself is a yes. So that's unanimous in favor of alternate 1. So let's move on to alternate 2. Is there any more comment there? I will say, I remember that discussion, and both
Yeah.
Pete and the HVAC specialist said it would take forever to pay itself back.
Right, that's what I was just gonna mention, is what we've heard from our mechanical engineer is that while it might help with draftiness potentially, in terms of the return on investment for the dollars to the saved heat value or the saved, energy value, it would take a really, really long time. And he wasn't even really able to calculate it in order to have that return on investment happen in terms of the dollars. So that's what was reported from our mechanical engineer, and I believe that Pete, you were in agreement with that. It just doesn't seem to make sense in terms of an investment given the return on investment timeframe.
Yes, it would be, probably wouldn't even pay the bond cost of that amount of borrowing. Would be my guess, but I haven't done that analysis, but it's nowhere near a payback.
So, Bill, I know you asked for an analysis, but based on just the opinions of our experts, it seems like paying for a detailed analysis would be, wouldn't change the decision.
No, that's good. I had forgotten the details that were just brought up.
Okay.
Second question. Could we do it later if, say energy costs really change an awful lot? Is this something that's an add-on, Christine?
Yeah, I believe so. It is designed as an alternate right now, and it's not detracting anything out of the scope to take it away. It's just a matter of paying to get those storms installed.
Thank you.
And one thing I'll add, Bill, is that the town has paid for that design already. So you would have the basis of design if in the event that the town wanted to go and explore something like that at a later date, they would have what was designed already.
Right, so it's drawn and it's elevated and it's specified already in our drawing, so that's something you have in your pocket. It's a
Yeah,
great point.
before you leave, Christine, maybe just put a package together and forward it to the library, and then they've got it. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I have the sense, let's have a motion in regards to alternate 2, and you can vote, you can move for, or you can move against, and we'll just vote accordingly. So,
Motion to approve alternate number 2.
have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mary seconded. Okay, so we're going through this motion. A vote for this would approve alternate 2. so I'm just gonna, Lynn, I see you on top, so I'm gonna pick you first.
I'm a no on that. Sukup, no.
Okay. Bob,
Petroselli, no.
Walter,
Leslie, no.
Kate,
Caraccio, no.
John,
John, Keo, no.
Pete,
Emery,
Done back.
no.
And
I'm
done
sorry.
back, no. Done back, no too. Thank you.
Lee,
Emery, no.
Bill.
I stated it wrong, so you're all correct.
Okay. We're just rejecting you personally, Bill.
I know.
Okay. Al,
Good, no.
Mary,
Johnson, no.
and myself is also a no. Okay, so we have approved alternate 1, but not alternate 2. And Brian, can you update the spreadsheet for that? And we'll need to get those numbers.
I will make the changes we just
quickly.
discussed, even for the descriptions, cutting the temp costs, as well as adding alternate number 1. I'll PDF this and send it to you immediately.
Great, thank you.
If you could just remind us, because I don't see it on the screen. Again, what was the cost of the aluminum windows? Was that 150,000?
153,447.
Okay.
Anything else on reviewing the bids and the total project cost update?
Only that Brian did a great job in presenting clarity to this whole thing.
Thank you, Bill.
So, the next item on the agenda is the National Grid easement and service agreement. You may know from previous meetings that the town has said we need to get that easement into the town meeting, and the town has actually drafted an article doing that. I can bring up a copy of that if people would like to see it. In fact, I'm going to do that whether you want to see it or not. If you don't want to see it, close your eyes.
Yeah.
It's actually combined into our main article.
Right, it's combined into the main article, and this is not the current state of the main article. Unless we want to do something different, we need to put the sum of money, which we'll get from Brian's estimate once he finishes that, into this first highlighted area. And then the second highlighted area is the language added about the easement. So it gives the library trustees the power to grant an easement. And assuming this article passes, the trustees will grant an easement. We can actually have a meeting at town meeting to do that and be able to move right then. So unless there's comments, I think the question of easements is going to be resolved.
I have a question that beckons back to the alternate 1 vote. In the town meeting, we don't discuss, we have a base plan and then an alternate and stuff. So the town meeting shouldn't be getting into line item kibitzing on the budget. Is that correct? I mean,
That is correct.
Just now part of our plan.
Yep. They'll be voting on that sum of money. This is all public record. A member of the public could go into this meeting and say, well, I don't think they should do X, and suggest an amendment to that effect. But we're not going to dive into the details ourselves.
Okay.
Any other comments or thoughts on this? Okay.
Looks good. I'm always worried about when it says other, but I'm guessing this came from legal.
This was written by Christie, and she ran it by I think 2 different legal groups. So
Was work well done by everybody to get us to here.
don't say that until we actually get the vote. Then we can do some congratulating. So, okay. I'm going to stop sharing then and move on to the next item, which is relocation. We have an update on the RFP from Library Relocation Services. Brian, anything new
Yes.
there?
And I know we were running a little low on time. If I may, I'll just share my screen quickly. I made those changes just so that everybody understands the changes that were reflected. I've updated the temporary facilities number I've added alternate number 1 as accepted to the base construction. I've changed the budget code to temporary facilities. And I've also added a $25,000 placeholder for CW Mars installation costs, which our total number now is at $12,405,173.
Great.
Good.
Okay. And if you can send us that PDF, we'll get that into our decks, into
do
the
that right now.
presentation decks. Okay.
And while
Ed, are
we're,
you
I just have,
gonna, sorry, Ed, are you gonna update your slides with that number, or do you want me to?
I'm thinking we should use your slides, so we're just going through one thing and not switching apps or anything. So if you can update it, and I'll come up after and we can confirm.
Perfect, because we got about 90 minutes to get that done.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know I have to jump off for another meeting, but Mike is prepared to talk about the temp library transition and the life safety analysis. But thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, and we are running short on time, so let's see. Back to library relocation, Brian.
I'll make this quick. We have a moving RFP that is in the hands of 3 firms right now. There's been some good questions from those firms. We've answered those accordingly. Thank you to LPA. They helped us with, one firm had some questions regarding the walkthrough that they had held. We were able to use some of the 3D technology that LPA had done previously in order to answer a lot of the questions that they have. We expect quotes next week from these 3 firms. At that point, we would be recommending a company to the LBC to engage in a purchase order with a successful vote. This price will be for the move out. We are also looking for a price for moving back, as well as keeping what I'm recommending, a small contingency in the moving line item in the event if anything needs to be stored or rearranged in the temporary outfit that maybe the town facilities does not have the equipment for. So we anticipate getting those costs. I believe it's middle of next week. We'll send that out and I'll call you, Ed, once those are received. In addition to that, we have, I know I've talked about the meetings we've had with building and fire. They're requesting several documents in order to be issued in order to gain occupancy. LPA has reached out to a few consultants. They are recommending a company called Socotech, and I can share that proposal with you here. And that is to do the assessments that are needed. They are fully understanding of what our scope is and what our end goal is for this temporary library. And with that, we're working with the facilities department as well as the building department to provide Socotech with any historical documents that we have from any of the previous tenants prior to the town purchasing the property. I will kick it over to Mike if he wanted to speak a couple things regarding the layout that they've been working with the staff, kind of organizing the way that the floor plan is going to go.
You're on mute, Mike.
There we go. Thank you, Brian. Freak me, I don't have the plan up there, but Christina's been working with Kate and crew to lay out the temporary space. And they've identified multiple areas to provide a children's area, a checkout area, and adult area, and the basic areas of what's currently used in the library. And the goal here is to create that, as terms been used before, that Barnes and Noble aspect of for the library. Forgive me while I look this up. No, sorry, I don't have a plan at my fingertips to,
Mike,
to
I
look at
have
with
that
you.
open. I can share it if you want.
Thank you, Ed.
Let's see.
While you're sharing that, Ed, just for the sake of time, I've also been in touch with Mark Stockman, who's the town IT director, who is helping us coordinate the site survey and the proposals from CW Mars for bringing the fiber and all the networking that's going to need to be brought into the facility. He's also going to be assisting with any type of wireless access points and the workstation locations that are going to need any hard plugins around the facility. So he's been a great help and a great resource and has been attended the previous transition meeting that we've been holding.
So this is the sketch of the library.
Very good. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome. And I can
Oh.
zoom in to people are interested because it's pretty unmutable right now.
So using the what you see in the sort of the pathways with that crosshatch in it, that's the existing tile layout, and utilizing that layout, sort of identifying different areas of the library and the programs of the library. So within the well, you can see up front near the two entry doors, there are the existing U-shaped desks, checkout counters. They'll be used for the circulation and other checkout uses. Off to the far left would be meeting and friends area, work area. Directly adjacent to that would be the computer area towards above that, and to exactly there you go is children's area, and that's cordoned off by shelving with a one entry point to try and limit access to that and try and keep the control of the kids as much as possible. And then to the back is a teens area. Again, trying to use shelving to cordon that off from the remainder of the space. And then off to the back right is the bookshelves and stack area. And there are some standards that are currently on the wall, try and reuse those standards as much as possible to display magazines and the latest books. And then towards the front here would be the adult reference area. And then in the corners, those triangular spaces, would be, the front one would be turned into a meeting space. And that one towards the back, towards the bathrooms, thank you, that right there, would be for historical storage. And then in the far back would be offices and the break room. And then you can see the toilet rooms as they exist. Again, we're just trying to clean those toilet rooms up and make them more presentable. For all intents and purposes, they are functional as they exist now, but just need a good cleaning. One area that we haven't talked about is in the far back. There's that loading dock, which still can be used for storage and receiving books and sorting. And there's also a mezzanine upstairs that would be available for some storage as well. So that's primarily the layout. Kate, if I've missed anything, or Lynn, please correct me.
Oh, yeah, I see your hands up.
Yes, I was wondering, somehow this children's area looks smaller than what we already have. So I just wanted to know what's the difference between the actual area the children will have versus what they have now.
I will say the whole floor is 30,000 square feet. So there's a lot of space in there. I don't know that I would have to take measurements to know whether it's smaller. But the overall space is more than the library has now.
Yeah, you're right, Ed. It is. I think that the open floor plan does make that children's area look relatively smaller. I think it is. I don't have the numbers at my fingertips exactly, the comparison of the difference, but yeah, it's an efficient layout, and the openness does help out as far as maximizing the space.
Okay, I think at the town meeting, if it looks like the children are getting less space than they have already, that's going to be an issue at town meeting. So we
I'm
need
not
to
sure
have
we're
those
showing
real
the
facts.
temporary space at town meeting.
Oh,
We
okay.
got to concentrate on
Yeah,
the
all right.
on the repair.
Good point. Okay.
You only get 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. On the other hand, Mike, if your team could do a like an area by area comparison of the different pieces, that'd be nice to know for a later meeting.
Will do.
Or even just enough to reassure a parent who asks at the town meeting, does this mean for a year our kids are gonna have, less resources or not? They're just to be able to reassure them.
But I also think the town is going to be pretty understanding that it's a temporary space and that, we will be having some less spaces, but our services will remain the same.
Right. Yep.
And our wonderful staff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I actually think that a more likely issue is going to be that there's nothing blocking the children's library noise from the rest of the room except space, which is a pretty big blocker. But for a year to save $500,000, I think it's worth doing.
It will make everyone really appreciate the layout of our current library.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I think one more thing I should mention is as we looked at laying this out, we took into anticipation of the potential to move to allow the senior center or community center progress. So the more flexible spaces are up front where they may need to be compressed to the back, and being able to leave the children's areas in place as much as possible and the teens area in place as much as possible, and then compress these areas, the other areas, the stack areas, the adult areas, the computer areas into a more dense layout if need be.
That red box is this red line is very roughly what the dividing line between what could go to the senior center and what's dedicated to the library.
All right.
Any other comments on the temporary library? So Brian, you said you should be getting estimates back next week sometime.
Proposals.
Proposals, okay.
And so what we would do is understanding that these proposals are not going to be set in stone. We would compare all of the proposals that we have, apples to apples as best we can, and then make a recommendation to the LBC and update that moving number accordingly.
Great. Temporary space. So we've talked about relocation, temporary space. Any more comments on either of those? Next item is planning for the town meeting. We have the presentation to the select board tonight. Kate and I are finalizing a presentation immediately after we finish here. I was originally going to suggest that we give you the presentation, but I don't think we have time. I'd rather get it ready and have time to get that done. If anybody's desperate to see it, I think we can give it.
While we're talking about that meeting, are we going to where do I get the link to join that as a Zoom? Have you sent that around, Kate?
It's on the agenda
just get it
for
from
the
the
select
town
board,
site?
or go to
Okay.
Westborough TV
Okay, thanks.
/ YouTube.
It's a regular select board meeting. It just happens to be better than
Okay.
all the others because we're there.
Mhm.
Okay, then we're meeting with the advisory finance committee on the March 2nd. I don't offhand know which day of the week that is.
March 3rd, Monday.
March 3rd, Monday. Okay.
So March
Thank you.
2nd's
Well
a
done.
Sunday.
Then
7
I'm glad I put that up. Okay, at 7 p.m. And there's a library building project information session here at the library on the 12th. The presentations to the select board and the finance committee will be relatively short. The one here at the library will go into all kinds of detail. Mike, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, take a step backwards here, but I know Brian mentioned our proposal with
Yes.
Oh, that's right. We need to vote
for
on
the-
that.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going at with it. So I can speak to that a little bit if need be, if anybody needs further explanation what Brian has provided.
I think, have you given the dollar value?
I have not.
I have not.
So that's probably an important piece of information in that.
So
So
go ahead, Mike.
sure. So just briefly again, just to highlight. So this looks at four primary concerns of the building and fire department. Is an inspection and testing of the fire protection system, sprinklers, that is, inspection and testing of the fire alarm system, confirming that all exit signs illuminate and emergency lighting's operating properly, And then also to provide an order of magnitude cost for any work that needs to happen to correct those systems. And then there are two pieces of work that Socotech has identified as additional optional scope. And those would be to witness some other testing with lighting, and then NFPA 241 plan, which shows some emergency action plans that would need to be in place during the temporary occupancy of the building. So the proposed cost would be for the 4 primary services. That cost would be $7,150, and then for those 2 additional scope items, that would be an additional $6,600.
I am sharing my screen if people would like to see that.
I know the fire department requested a specific set of plans from us. Is that NFPA 241 one of the things they requested?
Correct. That's correct. Yep.
And if we do that plus the scope of services, would that give us everything we need to have a plan that the fire department could approve, or, you know, that when built would be approvable? I guess my question is, does this give us everything we need to proceed with the fire safety?
That would be the intent.
That's my understanding, Ed. Yes, this would satisfy the building and fire to at least identify and satisfy the reports and assessments that they're looking for occupancy. It does not cover the actual work. If something is identified on here that needs to be mitigated, we would then have to figure out how that's getting done, whether through an existing contract with the town or finding somebody on state bid list that would be able to do this work.
Right. And that could be, for instance, the fire alarm panel or.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So my recommendation after reviewing this, Ed, would be is our recommendation is to approve this proposal on a not to exceed basis for all of it, inclusive of LPA's markup, which would be let me just do it quickly. It's going to be 10% of 12.5, which is going to be 13,750.
Okay.
Yes, that's right, Brian.
Okay. Mike, your hands up.
Oh, sorry, I just never lowered it. Sorry.
Any comments or questions from the committee? I'll make one. I feel we need to do this in order to occupy the building, so it's kind of hard to see that we try to duck out of this one.
We approve $15,750 for the professional fees as reported.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Hey, go down the list. Lynn?
Sukup, yes.
Bob?
Petroselli, yes.
Walter?
Leslie, yes.
Kate?
Caraccio, yes.
Sean?
EO, yes.
Pete?
Dunbeck, yes.
Lee?
Emery, yes.
Linnane?
Linnane,
I'm sorry,
yes.
Bill?
Linnane, yes.
Al?
Gordon, yes.
Mary?
Johnson, yes.
And myself is a yes. Okay. Mike, does that get you what you need?
Yes, it does.
Brian?
We'll
Okay.
get
follow
going
up
right
with the
away.
paperwork on that. Yes.
Okay. I think we're down to other building related issues. The only one I have on the list now is a search for a new building committee chair. Bill, I think you and Lee were going to suggest someone.
Well, I actually had a little talk with Bob because I was interested in what he thought about, us needing a new chair. And he had some interesting alternative ideas about instead of electing a new chair per se, having some other kind of sort of group governance or something. It sounded very interesting when he talked to me about it. So maybe it'd be better if he let you know.
Oh,
Okay.
sure. Ali approached me about coming in the new chair, and I told her when I commit to something, I commit 100%. And at this point in where I'm at right now. I can't commit 100% to becoming chair. I'll be happy to stay on as vice chair. But I think what we could do is maybe just wait and see what happens at town meeting, because maybe 30% chance it goes down. And then that means there won't be a future library building committee. Maybe 30% chance it passes, but very, very narrowly with some contentious debate. And that's a scenario for us to consider. Or maybe it passes overwhelmingly with total town support. And that's like a third scenario. And moving forward, I'm just throwing out, maybe we don't have a chair, vice chair. Maybe it's committees, or maybe it's kind of like a different governance structure, like inside and outside. Maybe the inside is with the library trustees, library staff and personnel that kind of talks about or governs or leads the discussions when we talk about interior programming. And then maybe there's folks like myself or Bill or Pete and others from Vertex and LPA to talk about the public construction piece of it and how the construction's going and the repairs going. So that was just something I mentioned to Lee, that maybe we rethink how this committee is structured after the vote is taken and how big of a support we get from the town.
Yeah, I also had a discussion with Bob, and what he's phrased to you is similar to what I said. I called it a team approach. He's saying the same thing.
I want to give you credit for that, Bill, too. I didn't mean to
That's
take
right.
take credit for you.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So I think I agree with Bob. Let's wait and see, and then Bob, myself, and whoever wants it, we'll come up with a team approach, and we'll go forward.
I need to ask one question.
Are there statutory requirements for
That was-
our
yeah.
committee to, I mean, because you're going to be signing typically on bills or other things, it's usually the chair that signs off on things, and that's so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm throwing that out there. I don't know the answer.
At the discussion, we'll come up with a chair for signing.
Okay, so sort of share the outreach duties, but somebody would be signing things, and you all would figure out who would run the meetings. Okay, given that we have 4 minutes till 5 o'clock, and that we don't really need to decide this, as Bob said, until town meeting, I propose that let's leave that for now. We can take it up at a later meeting. I have one other item of business. As you all know, the parking lot, use of the parking lot next door from the Congregational Church was approved. The contract is signed and sealed and all that. And I want to thank Lee as being the sort of the point person, or you broke the logjam there, Lee.
Thank you very much.
I think you deserve a lot of the credit for that happening.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
So,
I've been parking there no matter what. But I didn't get towed away. Now it'll be okay.
And a big approval to Ed to get us to this point.
Yeah. Wonderful.
don't approve that until town meeting. No, this is, we're at the 3-yard line. It doesn't count unless we get it over the goal. Okay, other building related issues.
Real quick, I'm going to be there. I plan to be there tonight in support. That's at the hall upstairs of the town hall.
Yes.
Okay. 6:10.
I was planning on attending, but I'm not feeling very good, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. So, I don't know. I know it's Zoom, but I might not be able to.
Bob, you said 6:10?
Did someone say, or did I
No.
read 6:10 somewhere?
Well, their meeting starts at 6, but I think this agenda item is closer
got
to
it.
7 or
Right.
something.
There's 3 groups, I believe, presenting articles.
Okay.
We're one of them, and I don't know what order we're going to go in. So 6:10 is probably the earliest we could be.
Okay.
But the latest is going to be sometime after that.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Anything else?
Move to
I'm gonna say
adjourn.
next meeting, March 11th, Tuesday, 2 weeks from now, 3:30 on Zoom. Okay, cool. I heard a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a second. Okay, Lynn,
Sukup, yes.
Bob,
Petroselli, yes.
Walter,
Leslie, yes.
Kate,
yeah.
Sean,
Theo, yes.
Pete,
John Beck, yes.
Lee. You're on mute, Lee. I'm going to jump on the bill. Okay, Lee's giving us the thumbs up. Okay, Bill,
Lennon, yes.
Al,
Gordon, yes.
Mary,
Johnson, yes.
and myself is a yes. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll see some of you. Do you need us, Sean?
No, I was just saying on the agenda, it's showing is 7:20. There's a couple other items before this, so
Okay.
just to let people know, look at the agenda before you show up.
Thank
The,
you.
the other thing to do is get it on Westborough TV, and you can see what's happening, and that'll tell you how close to the schedule it's
Yeah.
running.